Yes, that's right. Oh, about as hungry as usual, I guess. Yes, the usual time. Oh, I already have it. I bought it a few moments ago. All right, see you soon. Goodbye, dear. Mustn't forget the staff of life. Forgive me for keeping you waiting. That was a dutiful wife reminding a sometimes forgetful husband to be sure and call at the bakery. By the way, have you ever been through a really modern bakery? I had the experience not long ago, and it was well worth having. It almost staggered me to see the output in thousands and thousands of loaves of bread. Reminded me again that bread is a necessary thing. The making of bread begins with the flour. And behind these tons of flour is, of course, the whole wonderful story of grain. A scene like this, and we find ourselves repeating the words so often sung at harvest or Thanksgiving time. We plow the fields and scatter the good seed on the land, but it is fed and watered by God's almighty hand. He sends the snow in winter, the warmth to swell the grain, the breezes and the sunshine, the soft, refreshing rain. Perhaps wheat was once regarded as just another wild grass, until one day, perhaps by chance, it was discovered that the golden kernels were nourishing and good tasting. Wheat has played a large part in the building of new world nations. Great expanses became rich, wheat-growing belts, vast golden plains. In the past 100 years, there have been more improvements in the cultivation of wheat and in the making of flour and the baking of bread than was known in all the centuries before. With up-to-date methods, an acre of wheat can be cultivated, reaped, and threshed in the aggregate working time of little more than 2 man-hours. 100 years ago, it would have taken 64 hours. Great progress has also been made in milling. Primitive milling was done by grinding the grain between stones, thus producing the first flour. It was a kind of coarse meal. But now the milling industry is an outstanding example of modern cleanliness. The wheat is dry cleaned and thoroughly scoured. Every single speck of dirt that may have remained through the threshing and binning is removed before the wheat is made into flour. You know, it hardly seems possible that in my grandmother's day almost everyone baked their own bread. But now about 95% of all bread consumed is baked in a bakery. But whether by grandma or the bakery, bread continues to be one of the necessary things of life. I was fascinated by what I saw in the bakery. No wonder bread is not only a necessary but a strengthening thing. The ingredients are the finest. First, the flour is sifted and blended with care. All the ingredients are weighed with infinite care before being put into the mixing machines that make the dough. Precise temperatures are maintained by automatically controlled refrigeration. Professional bakers give extraordinary attention to the twin requisites of timing and temperature. And at the precise moment, the dough rolls out in huge batches. Now the dough goes to a fermentation room for several hours. Here, the action of the yeast will cause the dough to rise. My baker friend explained it all very carefully to me. Yeast, he said, is a one-cell plant, so small that a pound of baker's yeast contains 3,200 billion cells. These cells multiply by budding, and the process keeps right on repeating. And just here, machinery does in a few moments what would have taken multitudes of grandmothers a stupendous number of hours to do. This divider cuts the dough into pieces of precisely equal weight, then flings the pieces of dough onto the swiftly revolving rounder. The name is accurate in every way, for while the table goes around, the lumps of dough get rounder and rounder until they are almost a perfectly round, sealed ball. Until now, the dough has been moving through a variety of processes with speed and vigor. But now in the proofing machine it is allowed to rest for a short while. Controlled temperature and humidity will ensure a smooth texture in the finished bread. In grandmother's day, a loaf might have any size, any shape or weight. But if we've lost the variety, Machinery has made possible the uniformity that grandmother often strove to attain. This machine automatically shapes the dough and then places it in the pans. Along a traveling steam proofer, the baking pans with their individual loads of dough arrive at the giant oven. In constant motion, the dough will move through the oven to emerge as beautifully baked loaves. An oven such as this has a capacity of thousands of loaves every hour. Do you like fresh bread? There's something about it, isn't it? I can almost taste it now. Oh, some fresh butter and perhaps a little jam. And there's a tasty and strengthening snack. Yes, bread is more than wheat. It's also water, shortening, sugar, milk, salt, and yeast, all providing their own sources of nutrition. At this point, the bread is extremely hot. Fortunately, there are automatic machines to depan the loaf onto the conveyor, which will take the pans back to the molding machine and the newly baked bread on its way to the cooler. An experienced baker can tell from the scoring on the sides of the loaf the inner texture. To us, perhaps, all the loaves would seem the same, but the baker is a perfectionist too, and quality is his byword. For about 2 hours, the loaves slowly cool. By ingenious means, they travel from top to bottom of the cooler, following a winding path. The loaves move rapidly now to the slicing machine. A few years ago, very little bread was sliced at the bakery. Today, few loaves go out unsliced. The eye has to move quickly to catch the action of the blades. Indeed, before you can say sliced bread, the loaf is cut and another is in its place. Swiftly and neatly, the loaves are automatically wrapped. On the wrapper is the trademark of the bakery. In early Roman days, the trademark was imprinted right on the loaf. Now it's on the wrapper. But the idea is the same, to show pride of workmanship, care, and cleanliness. And that's how I came to get this loaf, and all the other loaves I remember to buy when my wife asks me to call at the bakery. Our particular bakery, it seems, was giving away a special piece of promotional material. It's a poem, and I think maybe you'd like to hear it. For bread, the merchant labors long and late. For bread, the baker goes from gate to gate. For bread, the sailor loses hearth and home. 1,000 miles bread seekers roam. For bread, the wild birds fall in nets and gins. For bread do men commit 100 sins. For bread, the soldier dies in siege and fight. For bread, the minstrel carols day and night. For bread, men study all that men may know. The house that wanteth bread is filled with woe. For bread unites the family as one. Its lack divides the father from the son. For bread are weddings made and sermons said. Of all good things, the first and best is bread. And I think you'll agree that when it comes to bread, that poem says it all, or almost all. The desire for food is strong in all of us and is a satisfying thing. But in the living word, the Bible, bread is mentioned scores of times. The whole history of bread is referred to. But I'd like to remind you that concerning bread, the Bible particularly asks a question and then makes a wonderful statement. It was from Isaiah the prophet, who said, "Wherefore do ye spend money for that which is not bread, and your labor for that which satisfieth not? Hearken diligently unto me, and eat ye that which is good, and let your soul delight itself in fatness." And later, Jesus talked about bread. He said, "My Father giveth you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is he which cometh down from heaven, and giveth life unto the world." Then said they unto him, "Lord, evermore give us this bread." And Jesus said unto them, "I am the bread of life. He that cometh to me shall never hunger." I am the bread of life, he said. Your fathers did eat manna in the wilderness and are dead. This is the bread which cometh down from heaven, that a man may eat thereof and not die. I am the living bread, which came down from heaven. If any man eat of this bread, he shall live forever. And the bread that I will give is my flesh, which I will give for the life of the world. As the living Father hath sent me, and I live by the Father, so he that eateth me, even he shall live by me. This is that bread which came down from heaven, not as your fathers did eat manna, and are dead. He that eateth of this bread shall live forever. I think we all understand why Jesus may be compared to bread. In the first place, as we've already said, bread is a necessary thing. If a person is starving, nothing is more necessary than bread. Until we know Jesus, our souls are starving, and he alone can feed them. The second reason why Jesus may be compared to bread is that bread is a strengthening thing. When we know Christ and believe on him, when we love him, then we are living on him. He becomes the bread of life to us. From him we have the spiritual nourishment we need. And then we compare Jesus to bread because bread is a satisfying thing. The soul can be hungry as well as the body. And when the soul is hungry, there is a longing, a craving that makes us unhappy. What the soul needs is Jesus. He is the bread of life that satisfies every longing of our spirit. Believe it. Accept Christ as your source of life just now. A songwriter has spoken of this bread of life. Break thou the bread of life, O Lord, to me, as thou didst break the loaves beside the sea. Beyond the sacred page I seek thee, Lord. My spirit pants for thee, O living word. Thou art the bread of life, O Lord, to me. Thy holy word, the truth that saveth me. Give me to eat and live with thee above. Teach me to love thy truth, for thou art love. And so to everyone everywhere, the Salvation Army sends its three-word benediction. God bless you. Join us again when we shall seek to learn more of him who is, in very truth, the living Word.